presence and occurrence of microspherules, very, very tiny spherical shaped melted pieces of mineral grains.
That was a woman, a wife of Lot. You see?
That's Lot's wife.
Archaeologists working near the Dead Sea expected to uncover simple ruins and broken artifacts from ancient times.
The archaeologists discovered piles of collapsed mud bricks and also large piles of ash and charcoal, and the town walls had been destroyed by fire.
Instead, they stumbled upon something that stopped them in their tracks. Buried beneath layers of salt and sand was a formation that looked disturbingly human, as if a person had been frozen in place. The team stood in stunned silence before rushing to collect samples and run tests. Quiet discussions began to spread through research circles. Could this strange pillar be connected to Lot's wife? If confirmed, it would change everything.
Here is the statue of Lot's wife.
A discovery that shook the desert. The excavation team had been working for weeks near the edge of the Dead Sea, an area long known for its unusual salt formations and rich biblical history. Their mission was to study the region's ancient settlements and gather geological samples that might explain the area's violent past. The team expected to find pottery shards, tools, or traces of early human life buried beneath the salt and sand. Nothing prepared them for what they were about to uncover. As the dig progressed, one archaeologist began clearing away a large mound of hardened salt and sediment. At first, it seemed like just another salt deposit, the kind scattered across the area. But as more of the structure was revealed, the shape started to look strangely familiar. Slowly, a figure began to emerge from the white crust. The archaeologists froze. It looked like a human being, arms drawn slightly forward, body twisted as if caught mid-motion. The sight went silent. Several members of the team instinctively stepped back, their faces filled with disbelief. Others leaned in, cautiously circling the formation, trying to make sense of what they were seeing. One team member reached out and lightly touched the surface, only to jerk his hand back as if shocked by how unnervingly real it felt. A heated discussion broke out. Some argued it was simply a naturally formed salt pillar shaped by time, wind, and erosion. Others whispered that this discovery might match descriptions in ancient texts rarely mentioned outside specialized theological studies. Recognizing the importance of the find, the team immediately began documenting everything. They photographed the formation from every angle, measured its dimensions, and carefully collected surrounding soil and salt samples for testing. Their goal was to preserve every detail before the site could be disturbed by outside interference. However, within hours, news of the strange discovery leaked online. Short video clips and photographs spread rapidly across social media platforms like X, TikTok, and Instagram. Headlines speculated about what had been found. Religious groups celebrated it as physical proof of a story told for thousands of years, while scientists and skeptics cautioned against rushing to conclusions. Heated debates erupted online, with many demanding answers and evidence. The discovery divided opinion and captured global attention. Was this just an unusual geological formation, or could it be direct evidence of one of the most dramatic events in the Bible? To understand why this find created such an uproar, we must return to the ancient story of Sodom and Gomorrah, where the origins of this mystery began. The story behind the pillar, Sodom, Gomorrah, and the Day of Judgment. Long before the discovery in the desert, the names Sodom and Gomorrah carried a reputation that stretched across the ancient world. According to historical and biblical accounts, these cities were not only wealthy centers of trade, but also cultural hubs located along vital trade routes near the Dead Sea. Their position made them important for commerce and travel, attracting merchants, farmers, and settlers. Over time, however, this prosperity was accompanied by widespread corruption, violence, and moral decay. Ancient writings describe these cities as places where justice was easily bought, power was abused, and the vulnerable were exploited without mercy. It was in this environment that Lot, the nephew of Abraham, chose to live. Lot had moved to the region because of its fertile land and the opportunities it offered his family. But as years passed, the city's wickedness became so severe that, according to the biblical narrative, it drew the attention of God. The account describes a moment when two messengers, referred to as angels, arrived to warn Lot and his family of a coming judgment. Their message was urgent and direct. Lot was told to take his family and flee immediately, leaving behind their possessions and everything they knew. The instructions given to Lot were very clear. They were told not to linger in the plains and not to look back as they escaped to the mountains. This was more than a safety precaution. It was symbolic of abandoning a life of corruption and moving forward into a future shaped by obedience and faith. The warning was a test of both trust and survival. As Lot and his family ran, chaos broke out behind them. The ancient account describes an overwhelming catastrophe, fire and brimstone falling from the sky, consuming everything in its path. In the midst of this terror, Lot's wife hesitated. She turned back to look at the city she was leaving, perhaps out of longing or disbelief. In that moment, she became a pillar of salt. This event was described as both a literal judgment and a symbolic act. Her transformation served as a warning about the danger of holding on to the past when called to move forward. For centuries, this story has been told as a lesson about obedience and faith. Ancient Jewish historian Josephus, writing in the 1st century, claimed he personally saw a salt pillar near the Dead Sea and believed it was Lot's wife. His testimony is significant because it shows that even 2,000 years ago, people were connecting a physical landmark to this ancient story. Modern scholars and scientists have presented different interpretations. Some argue that the story is purely symbolic, representing moral and spiritual truths rather than a literal event. Others suggest it may have been based on a real natural disaster. For generations, the tale of Sodom and Gomorrah has shaped cultures, faiths, and moral teachings. While scriptures preserve the story, modern science now seeks to uncover what truly happened beneath the sands of time, hoping to separate legend from history. The Dead Sea, Earth's natural laboratory of salt and fire. The cities of Sodom and Gomorrah were not only names from an ancient text, they were described as real cities placed in a very specific region that still exists today, the land surrounding the Dead Sea. To understand how such dramatic destruction could have happened, we must first understand this unique location. It is a place shaped by salt, fire, and extreme natural forces that can create breathtaking beauty and, at the same time, catastrophic devastation. The Dead Sea lies at the lowest point on Earth's surface, over 1,400 feet below sea level. This extreme position has created an environment unlike anywhere else in the world. The water is so dense with salt and minerals that no fish or plants can survive, which is why it has often been called lifeless. Along the shores, crystallized salt forms thick, white layers that shimmer under the sun. The ground crunches underfoot, leaving explorers with the sense that they are walking across another planet. These conditions make the region extraordinary and help explain why salt plays such a central role in the biblical story of Lot's wife. It is a land where salt is everywhere, naturally shaping the landscape and even preserving it for centuries. Beneath this dramatic surface, the land is far from peaceful. The Dead Sea region sits directly on a fault line where two massive tectonic plates,
The Arabian plate is actually being separated from Africa over long periods of time, and these triangles here is where the plates are actually colliding with each other.
the African and Arabian plates, meet. This makes it one of the most geologically unstable areas in the Middle East.
Whether it's a collisional motion or a side lateral motion, this is where pressure builds up between the pieces of the puzzle, and when the pressure is released, we have earthquakes.
Earthquakes are common and can strike with little warning. In certain places, entire sections of ground collapse suddenly, forming deep sinkholes that swallow trees, roads, and sometimes buildings. Researchers have also documented sudden bursts of underground gases escaping to the surface. If these gases ignite, they can create explosions and bursts of heat powerful enough to destroy anything in their path. Some scientists believe that natural events like these may explain ancient descriptions of fire and brimstone raining from the sky, as entire cities could have been destroyed in moments. One of the most striking features of this region is Mount Sodom. This massive ridge stretches for 5 miles and is made almost entirely of rock salt. Over centuries, wind and rain have sculpted its surface into strange and haunting formations. Some are so unusual that they resemble animals or even human figures. Scientists today view these formations as the natural results of erosion, while others see them as physical reminders of a divine event. This mix of perspectives makes Mount Sodom a place where history, geology, and faith collide. The land itself offers powerful clues, but the full story of what happened here cannot be understood by surface observations alone. To uncover the truth, archaeologists must dig deeper into the layers of history buried beneath the salt and sand, where the evidence of ancient destruction still waits to be found. Excavating the ashes, archaeological evidence of destruction. For decades, archaeologists have been digging into this land, searching for evidence that could confirm or deny the dramatic account of Sodom and Gomorrah's destruction.
God tells us why he destroyed Sodom. He says, I destroyed Sodom because they were arrogant, overfed, they were not taking care of the widows and the orphans, and they did detestable things in my sight.
What they have uncovered is both remarkable and deeply unsettling. Layer by layer, they have found proof that thriving cities once stood here and that they met a violent, catastrophic end. The search has centered on 3 major excavation sites near the Dead Sea: Tal el Hammam, Bab el-Adra, and Numera. These locations are spread across the northern and southern edges of the region. Many scholars believe they may represent the very cities mentioned in ancient writings. Each site offers unique evidence that helps piece together what may have happened thousands of years ago. At Tal el Hammam, researchers uncovered a layer of ash and destruction so intense that it immediately drew worldwide attention. Among the most shocking finds were fragments of pottery that had been exposed to such extreme heat that their surfaces partially melted, forming glassy textures. According to archaeologists, this kind of damage would have required temperatures far beyond anything that humans of the time could create. This rules out ordinary fires from warfare or accidents. It suggests an event of extraordinary power and speed, one capable of leveling an entire settlement in moments. Farther south, at Bab el-Adra and Numera, excavations revealed a different but equally disturbing picture. Entire buildings appear to have collapsed at the exact same time. Walls lean outward in unnatural angles, as if they were pushed by a sudden and violent blast. Buried within the rubble are human remains mixed with burned debris, showing that the destruction was swift and gave little chance for escape. These cities were not gradually abandoned over years. They were erased in a single catastrophic event, leaving behind ruins that were never rebuilt. These findings have led to several competing theories among scientists. The most dramatic is the cosmic airburst theory. This idea suggests that a comet or meteor exploded in the atmosphere above the region, releasing an enormous wave of heat and pressure. Scientists compare this to the Tunguska event in Siberia in 1908, which flattened thousands of trees without leaving a crater. If such an explosion occurred here, it would match the descriptions of fire and destruction raining from the sky. Other researchers point to possibilities such as massive earthquakes or underground gas eruptions that suddenly ignited. While no single explanation has been universally accepted, all agree that something extraordinary occurred. Through these excavations, archaeologists have begun to bridge the gap between legend and physical evidence. Entire cities were consumed in moments, leaving behind ruins that silently testify to a disaster unlike any seen before. Yet, while the cities and their people were lost to history, the story speaks of one figure who remained: Lot's wife, frozen in salt, a solitary reminder of that day when everything else vanished. A pillar through the ages, tradition and testimony. Long before any modern dig, the figure of Lot's wife lived on in memory. The story moved with traders, pilgrims, and scribes who crossed the Dead Sea region and pointed to the Salt Hills as evidence that the past had left a mark on the land. Early Jewish writings kept the warning alive. Wisdom literature from the Second Temple era speaks of a standing pillar of salt as a memorial to disbelief, treating it as a visible sign rather than a distant metaphor. Rabbinic commentaries added detail and moral weight, using her fate to teach against attachment to a corrupt city. Christian teachers later repeated the warning and folded it into preaching about obedience and urgency, while Islamic sources spoke of a destroyed people and a sign left on the road for all who passed. Across these traditions, the common thread was simple. What happened at the Dead Sea was meant to be seen and remembered. Travelers began to put eyes on the claim. Late antique pilgrims wrote about visiting the region and being shown a human-shaped salt figure by local guides. Medieval accounts picked up the same thread. Itineraries from those centuries describe standing near the Dead Sea shore and hearing locals identify a particular spire as the woman who looked back. Some writers accepted this without hesitation. Others noted the shape and left judgment to the reader. According to several of these reports, the tradition was strong enough that guides across generations could point to a specific pillar and name it. In the age of exploration, the story met the camera. 19th century survey teams mapped the Dead Sea Basin and logged its landmarks in sober field notes. Early 20th century photo archives include images of a narrow salt tower with captions that call it Lot's wife. The same spire appears in different albums years apart, suggesting that visitors were returning to a known spot, not inventing a new one each time. According to local accounts, guides on both the Israeli and Jordanian sides still point to pillars they identify with the story, though the exact pillar can change as erosion reshapes the ridge. Over time, the pillar became more than a waypoint. It became a symbol. Painters tucked it into scenes of the cities burning in the distance. Preachers used it to drive home a hard lesson about hesitation and divided loyalty. Writers and teachers of three faiths reached for the image when they needed to warn their audiences against looking back. Even today, devotional materials show the salt figure as a stark silhouette. The message is not subtle. Some moments demand trust and movement, not nostalgia. Not everyone agrees on what the pillar means. Some scholars see a natural formation that later gained a famous name. Others believe the tradition preserves a memory that has clung to the landscape for centuries. According to a few regional historians, the stability of the identification across time is itself a clue that communities did not invent the link casually. Skeptics reply that salt hills produce many human-like shapes, and that stories tend to settle on the most striking one. Both sides point to the same ridge and draw different conclusions. What cannot be denied is the persistence of the testimony. Texts, travel diaries, maps, and photographs all show people returning to the Dead Sea and being told to look. The pillar stands at the meeting point of belief and place, where memory presses itself into stone and salt. Tradition can only carry the story up to a point. To truly understand the pillar and convince a modern audience, scientists must test the salt itself and analyze what is locked inside it. Science versus faith. Testing the pillar. Archaeologists and geologists working in the Dead Sea region have been studying the area's unique geology and its connection to ancient settlements. Their original mission was broad: to better understand the region's violent history by examining ruins, mapping salt formations, and studying patterns of destruction. As part of this larger research, they decided to include the famous salt pillar in their surveys, partly because of its cultural significance and the centuries-old claims linking it to the biblical story. Using advanced technology, the teams began to document the site in ways never done before. Drones flew over the salt ridges, capturing detailed aerial images and creating 3D maps that revealed patterns invisible to the naked eye. On the ground, researchers drilled small core samples from the pillar itself. These samples were carefully sealed in sterile containers and transported to labs for testing under controlled conditions to prevent contamination. The first phase of analysis focused on the pillar's basic composition. Results showed that most of its salt matched the surrounding formations, which supports the idea that it was shaped naturally by wind, water, and erosion over thousands of years. However, deeper layers of the pillar revealed something unexpected. Certain sections contained trace elements that were not present in the surrounding salt beds. This raised questions among researchers, with some suggesting that the differences hinted at a unique and possibly violent event in the distant past. The debate intensified when reports surfaced of unusual heat-related evidence. Some researchers claim to have found microspherules, which are extremely tiny spherical particles formed when minerals are exposed to sudden, intense heat. These particles have also been found at sites of volcanic eruptions, meteor impacts, and massive explosions. Unverified reports suggest that certain samples taken near the pillar contained higher than expected concentrations of these particles. If confirmed, this could indicate that a catastrophic event, such as a cosmic airburst or underground explosion, occurred around the time the pillar formed. Skeptics argue that these anomalies can be explained by the area's natural geological activity. The Dead Sea region sits on a fault line, known for earthquakes, ground shifts, and sudden releases of gas and minerals. In their view, the pillar's human-like shape is a coincidence, later connected to ancient legends. They maintain that erosion and natural forces are enough to explain both the pillar's form and the strange data. For believers, however, the findings tell a different story. They see the unusual heat signatures, rapid destruction, and the survival of a single pillar as aligning too closely with the biblical account to dismiss. To them, the pillar is not only a natural wonder but also physical evidence of a moment of divine judgment. Adding to the tension are rumors about a leaked laboratory report. According to these claims, some test results were so unusual that they were withheld from publication. While unverified, these whispers have fueled speculation, suggesting that the data could challenge both conventional science and long-held religious beliefs. As the research continues, the pillar remains at the center of global attention. What began as a routine part of a broader archaeological study has become one of the most debated discoveries in recent memory. The evidence is growing, but the most shocking revelation may still lie hidden deep within the salt, waiting to be uncovered. What the archaeologists found. The final stage of the investigation began like any other day. The team had spent weeks studying the pillar, taking samples, scanning it with advanced equipment, and reviewing data. Most of the scientists believed the newest samples would confirm what earlier tests had shown, that the formation was entirely natural, The atmosphere in the lab was calm and routine, almost predictable. No one was expecting anything out of the ordinary. That calm shattered when one of the deepest core samples was placed under high-powered equipment. At first, everything seemed normal. Then, a researcher noticed a strange dark layer buried deep inside the pillar. This material was completely different from the surrounding salt. It was denser and had a texture unlike anything they had seen before. According to unverified reports, some of these fragments looked similar to organic matter. The lab fell silent. The team stood frozen as the implications sank in. If these traces were what they appeared to be, it could mean that something once living was trapped and preserved inside the pillar. The reactions were immediate and intense. Some scientists leaned closer to the microscope, whispering in disbelief. Others stepped back, visibly shaken. One researcher reportedly pushed his chair away and said this was beyond anything they had prepared for. The team began running additional scans late into the night. Each new test confirmed that the material was unusual, but no one could agree on what it meant. Confusion turned to tension as theories clashed. Within the team, two clear groups formed. Skeptics argued that the dark layer could be plant matter or unusual mineral deposits shaped over time. They demanded caution and insisted that without DNA or clear biological markers, no one should claim it was related to a human being. Others were convinced the evidence matched the ancient story too closely to dismiss. They pointed to the pillar's shape, its position near Mount Sodom, and now this strange inner core. To them, this was more than coincidence. It was confirmation of the biblical account. When news of the discovery began to quietly circulate, it spread slowly through academic and archaeological circles. A few researchers who were not directly involved in the project heard about the unusual findings through private conversations and preliminary reports. According to some accounts, only a handful of institutions were aware of the details, and even then, the information was incomplete. Believers within these circles saw the discovery as a potential confirmation of the ancient story, while skeptics urged caution and demanded more data before drawing conclusions. The discussions remained behind closed doors, with no official announcement made. For now, the evidence stayed contained within labs and research papers that had not yet been released, leaving the outside world largely unaware of what had been found. According to reports, the most dramatic moment came when a small piece of the inner material underwent further testing. The results were never fully released, but rumors claimed that the sample reacted in ways no one expected. Some believe the findings were withheld because they were too disruptive, while others think they simply raised more questions than answers. These claims remain unconfirmed, but they have fueled endless speculation. The discovery left the experts divided. No one could say for certain whether the pillar held the remains of a person or was simply a strange natural phenomenon. What was certain was the impact. This finding challenged people's beliefs about history, faith, and truth itself. It was no longer just a story in an ancient text. It was a mystery standing tall in the desert, daring humanity to confront what it was willing to believe. Scientists continue to debate the meaning of the findings. Some believe the discovery challenges the boundaries of archaeology and raises questions about how faith and science can coexist. Others remain firmly skeptical, arguing that while the pillar is fascinating, it cannot serve as proof of a miracle without more conclusive evidence. This clash of views has turned the site into both a place of worship and a battlefield of ideas. Beyond the debates, the story speaks to a universal human theme. The image of Lot's wife looking back has become a symbol of hesitation and regret. It represents the struggle people face when leaving behind what is comfortable, even when moving forward is necessary for survival. In this way, the pillar is not just about ancient history, it is about human nature and the choices that define our lives. As the sun sets over the Dead Sea, the pillar stands silently against the horizon. Whether it is truly Lot's wife or simply a remarkable natural formation, it forces everyone who sees it to confront one haunting truth: the fragile line between myth and history, and the lasting consequences of looking back when we are called to move forward.